I didn't understand the signs. I didn't understand the language. I didn't even understand why they left me. It was supposed to be a family vacation. Sun, laughter, food, photos. One last trip together before my health got worse. They promised me memories. But what they gave me was abandonment. We were in a beautiful European city. They said we'd explore together. But on the third day, everything changed. My daughter asked me to wait outside a shop. Just wait here, Mom. We'll grab something quickly. She smiled. She kissed my cheek. Then they walked into the store. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Then 30. I peeked inside. There was no one there. I stood on that narrow street, holding my purse tight, trying to stay calm. Maybe they just took a wrong turn. Maybe they were in the cafe next door. Maybe this was a mistake. But when I checked my phone, it was dead. I asked a stranger for help. He didn't speak English. I asked another. She just shook her head. I was panicking. Where was my family? The hotel name? I didn't remember. All I had was a city name on a souvenir bag. And hope. I sat down on the edge of the street. Cars passed. Tourists laughed. And I cried. Because somewhere deep inside, I knew they weren't coming back. I remembered how my son-in-law had whispered to my daughter 2 nights before. She's too much. She's slowing us down. And how she didn't defend me. Just nodded. I thought they were frustrated. I didn't know they were planning to get rid of me. That night I walked. With no direction. Just trying to find someone who might understand me. It was getting cold. I only had a light sweater. No phone. No charger. No ID. Nothing but a few coins in my pocket, and a heart that felt like it was breaking. I tried entering a small shop. The man behind the counter yelled at me in a language I couldn't understand. I walked out in shame. I sat near a bench and cried silently. People passed. Some stared. None stopped. I tried to sleep, but the cold cement beneath me made my bones ache. I used my scarf as a blanket, but it barely helped. Around 3 a.m., a kind woman handed me a bottle of water. She said something soft. Her eyes were kind. I cried again. Not because of the water, but because someone finally saw me. Morning came. I walked to a small square with more people. I saw a Wi-Fi cafe. I begged them in broken words to help me charge my phone. They let me sit. My hands shook as the screen came to life. First thing I checked. Our family group chat. Nothing. No messages. No missed calls. No one asking, Mom, where are you? Just photos of beaches, food, and smiling faces. They were still on vacation. Still posting. Like I didn't exist. My heart cracked. I opened my daughter's Instagram. Her latest photo? A smiling selfie. Captioned, "Finally free." That's when I stopped crying. Because in that moment, I knew. They didn't lose me. They left me. On purpose. I sat in that cafe for hours, sipping one small tea to stay. I didn't know what I would do next. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going back to that family. And I wasn't going to beg them to come find me. Because they thought I was weak. Old. Useless. But they forgot something. I raised that family from nothing. I built their lives with my sacrifices. That house they lived in. The money they used for the vacation. The savings. All mine. They just didn't know. It was still in my name. And that was going to change everything. I didn't want to believe it. Even after everything. I still hoped it was a mistake. That maybe they'd come back. That maybe they realized what they had done. But the truth was colder than the ground I slept on. They were gone. I was left in a foreign country like forgotten luggage. Thrown away. Because I was too slow for their vacation. Too old to keep up with their perfect pictures. Too much of a burden. That night, I had nowhere to go. I walked until I found a small gas station just outside the city. It was quiet. And behind the building, there was a space between 2 dumpsters. It smelled. But it was dry. And hidden. So I sat there. And I waited for the sun to rise. I remember how my back ached. How the hard ground felt like it was trying to break my bones. I tried to sleep. But every sound made me jump. A barking dog. A speeding car. Even the wind felt like it was against me. And all I kept thinking was, How did I become this? Just 3 days ago, I was sharing breakfast with my daughter. She smiled and said, "Mom, I'm so glad we brought you." Liar. Now, I was eating crumbs from an old snack bag I had saved from the airport. That was my dinner. A piece of old cracker. And my daughter? She was out eating seafood and taking selfies by the beach. How do people become this cruel? I finally managed to close my eyes for a few minutes. But then the cold woke me. I wrapped my arms around myself, whispering, "You've survived worse. Just wait till morning." When daylight came, I walked around trying to find help. A man working at the gas station saw me. He looked suspicious. I waved gently and tried to smile. He walked away. I wasn't scary. I was a grandmother. But to him, I looked like trouble. Just an old woman with messy hair and swollen eyes. I walked back toward the city, passing through neighborhoods I didn't recognize. My feet hurt. My knees were swollen. I just needed a place to rest, to think. I found a public bathroom in a park. I cleaned my face using cold water. It was the only mirror I had seen in 2 days. I looked like someone else. Not the mother who raised 3 kids. Not the woman who worked 2 jobs to pay for their school. Not the one who cooked for them, cleaned for them, prayed for them. No. I looked like someone they had erased. I used a bit of soap from a dispenser to wash my hands and face. I dried them with paper towels. And I kept walking. My phone had barely 5% battery left. I had used it to try and search for local shelters or places that help lost tourists. But I had no mobile data. And the cafe Wi-Fi was too far now. I found a bench and sat down. Next to me was a man smoking. He was maybe 30. I asked him if he spoke English. He nodded. I told him my story, short and simple. My family left me here. I don't know why. I just need help. He stared at me for a while. Then he asked, "You don't have anyone else to call?" I shook my head. He offered me his phone charger. We sat by a small wall with an outlet. For 30 minutes, I charged my phone just enough to turn it on. I checked their social media. They were smiling, eating, laughing. One post was a video. My granddaughter dancing on a boat. The caption said, "Best vacation ever. No stress. No drama." No stress. Because they left me. No drama. Because I wasn't there. I didn't cry this time. I didn't have any more tears. Just something hard in my chest. Like a stone made of anger and sadness. I didn't call them. Didn't message. Instead, I looked through my old emails. And that's when I remembered something. All the property papers. All the family accounts. All the savings I had put in for emergencies. They were still in my name. My husband had died years ago. I never changed the documents. I let them live in that house. Let them drive the car. Let them manage the bills. But technically, it all still belonged to me. I never thought I'd need to take it back. Until now. A fire lit inside me. Not hate. But justice. They thought I was weak. But they forgot something. I was the one who gave them everything. And I could take it all away. That day, I walked to the nearest tourist center. Explained what had happened. They helped me call the embassy. Helped me arrange a temporary stay at a local shelter. I got food. A real bed. A phone charger. I was finally safe. And while I ate warm soup that night, I started writing. Writing everything they had done. Every detail. Because when I returned home, I wasn't going to beg for forgiveness. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I was going to remind them what it feels like to be left with nothing. And when they returned from their perfect vacation, their world was going to change. Permanently. It had been 4 days since they left me. 4 days of silence. No messages. No calls. No apology. I had gone from airport hotels to park benches, to now, a small local shelter that felt more like home than the house I raised my kids in. The staff there were kind. They gave me food. They helped me contact my embassy. And they gave me one important thing I hadn't felt in days. Dignity. Every night, I tried not to cry. But sometimes it just came. Not from sadness. But from the realization. I didn't matter to the people I loved the most. They had completely moved on. My granddaughter posted a story laughing on a beach swing. My daughter posted a quote. Peace is when you finally let go of toxic energy. Was I the toxic energy? I was the woman who held her hand during every surgery, who paid for her wedding dress, who stayed up feeding her baby while she slept. But now, I was an unwanted burden they had quietly removed. It hurt, but it also made me stronger. Each day, I began planning. Not revenge, but justice. The embassy helped me report the situation. They asked for my family's names and phone numbers. I gave everything. A few days later, 2 officers came to visit me at the shelter. They had found them. My family. They were still in the same country. Still vacationing. Still smiling. But now the police had questions for them. The officers looked serious. "Ma'am, your daughter told us you disappeared on your own. That you have memory issues." Memory issues? I laughed. The kind of laugh that sounds like you're choking on heartbreak. I looked them both in the eye and said clearly, if I had memory issues, I wouldn't be sitting here explaining everything in full detail. They nodded. I showed them photos, messages, screenshots of their vacation posts, receipts, proof I had been left intentionally. They listened. One officer said, "Would you like us to contact them for a reunion?" And I said one word. No. They looked surprised. But I wasn't. Going back to that house would be like walking into a cage. They didn't miss me. They didn't search for me. They lied to the police. That's not a family. That's betrayal wrapped in blood ties. I told the embassy I'd find my own way home. They helped book my flight. A kind volunteer drove me to the airport. I had nothing but a small suitcase and my documents. But I had something more important. Clarity. On the plane ride home, I sat quietly by the window, watching clouds float like soft lies in the sky. I wasn't going back to be their old mother anymore. The one who paid the bills, who watched the kids, who gave and was left behind. No, I was going back as the real owner of their lives. And the first thing I did after landing? I went straight to my lawyer, Mr. Phillips. He'd helped me years ago when my husband passed. I still had everything in my name. The house, the accounts, even the land their little vacation business was registered under. They never thought I'd check, because they never thought I'd survive. I handed him all the details. He looked at me and said, "You're serious about this?" I nodded. "I'm not doing this out of hate," I told him. "I'm doing this because they need to feel what I felt. Abandonment, isolation, fear. And maybe then they'll understand what a mother's love really means." Within days we filed papers. I froze the accounts. I paused the business license. And the house? It was being prepared for repossession. I owned it. They were just living in it. And soon, they wouldn't be. The last part of this chapter wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was quiet. Because justice doesn't need to scream. It only needs to arrive. And it was coming. They had no idea what was waiting for them. After 10 days of beach photos, spa visits, and fake smiles, my family finally flew back from vacation. They laughed at the airport, posted selfies in the cab, captioned their last reel. Back to real life. But real life was about to teach them a lesson they would never forget. While they dragged their expensive suitcases up the front steps of the house I had bought, they noticed something was off. A notice was on the door. A legal seal. A letter from my lawyer. The locks had been changed. Their keys didn't work. They stood outside, confused, annoyed, and finally scared. I watched the video later. My neighbor had filmed it from across the street. My daughter kept banging on the door, shouting, "This is our home. Let us in." But it wasn't their home. Not legally. Not anymore. It was mine. They never transferred the ownership. Because they never thought they'd need to. They thought I was weak, old, done. But I was still their mother. And I was still the name on every paper. The notice on the door said, "Property legally reclaimed by rightful owner. Access restricted until further legal review." That rightful owner? Me. While they stood in shock on the front lawn, neighbors started to gather. People whispered. Some looked away in embarrassment. Others watched like it was a TV drama. My son-in-law tried calling me. 5 missed calls. Then 10. I didn't answer. He finally left a voicemail. Please, Mom, we didn't mean to leave you. We thought you went off on your own. We were scared. Just let us back in. Let's talk. Talk. They didn't want to talk when I was crying in a foreign street. They didn't want to talk when I begged strangers for help. Now they wanted forgiveness. Because they had nowhere to go. They tried to check into a hotel that night. But the cards didn't work. I had frozen all linked accounts. They had money in cash, sure. But not enough to keep pretending everything was fine. On the third day, I finally answered the phone. Just once. My daughter was crying. Mom, please. Where are you? We can't live like this. I didn't yell. Didn't scream. Didn't insult her. I simply said, you taught me what it feels like to be left alone. Now you feel it too. She said nothing. So I added, when someone gives you everything, don't throw them away like nothing. Then I hung up. That was it. No dramatic ending. No sudden hug. No reunion music. Just truth. They tried for weeks to contact me. Apologies. Excuses. Even tried to get lawyers involved. But every lawyer told them the same thing. She owns it. All of it. Eventually they stopped trying. They moved into a small apartment across town. Started over. And me? I moved into a quiet cottage I had bought years ago. My name was on that deed too. Of course. I planted flowers. Read books. Drank tea every morning in peace. And I didn't feel bitter. I didn't feel angry. I felt free. Because sometimes, justice doesn't come from shouting. Or revenge. Sometimes it comes from showing people what they gave you. And letting them live in it. They left me with nothing in a foreign land. So I showed them what that really feels like. And in the end, I didn't take their home. They gave it away the day they walked away from me.